All right, good evening, folks. Good evening and welcome back. My name is Christopher Ruocchio. I am the author of the Sun Eater science fantasy series from Dahl Books and a 7-year veteran of the publishing industry. And today is the day, at long last, book 4, Kingdoms of Death, is out. And I know many of you have read it already. Yeah. I've gotten a bunch of that today, actually. But I know a bunch of you picked it up already. For those who don't know, it is available now wherever books are sold. I will say right at the top, before anybody asks, the audiobook did get a brief delay. It'll be out on Thursday. That is just because of just they had to do some retakes, I suppose, at last sort of minute. So yeah, so it'll be out. It'll be out on Thursday, and on Thursday as well. For those of you who are within a reasonable distance of my home here in Raleigh, North Carolina, I will be at Quail Ridge Books on Thursday at 7 p.m. To basically do this again, but in shorter, less global, more compressed form. Because we'll only have an hour to do, a bit of Q&A and signing over there. Kind of quite decided if I'm going to do a reading there or not. I am going to do a little bit of a reading here this evening, just from the beginning of the book. I know some folks, as I've said, have been through the whole thing already. Mark, it's funny you say that the camera quality is awesome. This is the one I always use. It is just that with the window behind me, the white balance is actually better. I did want to say here at the top that I am finally, my desk is where it belongs, here in the corner. Where I was right over there before. So I'm in the same room, but things are working out. These are not what the curtains are supposed to look like. So I was trying to do my best to deal with the sun, but right now, yeah, everything is actually like working. Yeah, lighting is everything. I hope the sound is okay. I realized after I hit go that I hadn't pulled out my sort of echo suppressing thing. So hopefully it'll be okay. If people start complaining about the echo, I will roll away briefly and fix it. Let's see. I've got a bunch of familiar faces here in the chat. We've got 33 people on already. That is awesome. So let's see. Hey, Mark, and where's the time? Welcome back, Jonathan. Dan, and Scott's here. Severian, Albert. Albert has already finished the book. He's one of them. Matt, Orion. Hey, everybody. David, it's good to see you, my friend. It's been a long time. Brendan's here as well. Treebeard, Aspiring Gold Soul. Welcome everybody. James Andrews. Hey Corey. Ian. Should be wrapping up Demon in White starting KOD end of the week. That is awesome. Awesome. All right. Jimmy's here as well. And Rick, yeah, I should have eaten the sun. That has solved some of the lighting problem. For sure. So I do want to say, since I know a couple folks who are here. Oh, Allie's here as well. Didn't want to miss, everybody else. It looks like and miss anybody rather. But I think we're doing good. Hey, Nick's here as well. Cool. Well, welcome everybody. And if I did miss anybody, I apologize. So my plan here. Oh, and hang on real quick. Thank you, Jimmy, for the $20, and thank you. Yeah, new release, very exciting day. I kind of took the day off. I was going to work on the next short story and try to pretend none of this was happening. But I ended up not doing that and just watching everyone react in real time, which has been fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a reading from this, and then we'll just basically do the sort of big version of what I do all the time, which is just sort of answer your questions and hang out. I will say though, we'll do this a little. The one thing we'll do differently is I try to stay away from spoiler stuff in the normal monthly Q&As. For this one, obviously, let's not talk about the new book. I know, like I said, Albert's already read the whole thing, but some folks have not. And so I would like to avoid really talking about the new book at all in terms of plot developments, because there's some big stuff in this one. But if you want to ask some more in-depth spoiler questions for 1, 2, and 3, let's try to parcel those out for people who might not have read that far. But for the general purposes of the stream, let's assume that some of that stuff that's usually, we usually don't touch on is on the table. So if you have any sort of first 3 book spoiler related questions, we can do those as well. Please do feel free to leave them in the chat. I'm gonna just read a little bit right from the beginning of the book, sort of to ring everything in and see how it goes. All right. So This book, obviously, is the fourth in the series. It's hard to talk about books that are far into a series without really talking about anything, spoiling anything, I suppose. But just to set the scene, for those of you who don't know, this takes place about for Hadrian 70 plus years after the end of Demon in White. He has essentially been sidelined. Excuse me, sorry, no, that's wrong. It's been about 200 years. It's been 70 years since he was sidelined by the emperor, and a bunch of stuff's happened. Did some more battles, and his legend is caught up with him. And the emperor has basically, for his own protection, put him under house arrest on the planet Nessus, where he has been advising the Magnarch. The Magnarchs are sort of little mini emperors. They're kind of like super viceroys who run the big sort of quadrants of the empire. They're not quite full emperors, but it's sort of like the Romans went through their tetrarchy period, where they had, you know, 4 different emperors for the different districts, and that lasted, you know, for just about 2 emperors, and then it fell apart. But in real life, but in Hadrian's timeline, or part of the timeline, let's say, because it is our future, that this system has been pretty stable. So the Magnarch of Centaurus is in charge of all the imperial colonies in the Centaurus arm of the galaxy, which after the loss of the Norman Expanse, which was the northernmost, sort of the closest to the core region of the empire, has become the new sort of front line in the war. And so Hadrian has been advising the Magnarch on all things Cielson, and has basically been protected from those people in the Imperium who are trying to you know, help the emperor by getting rid of Hadrian. People like the Empress, right? Like the late Lord Bourbon and his conspirators and all of those folks. So Hadrian has been trapped basically, and has not been able to do much in the last like 70 years. And when the book begins, he has been summoned finally to do something for the first time in all that time. The planet Akana was attacked. Akana is a fuel plant. Basically, it makes antimatter for the warp drives, because when you are running these ships, it requires a tremendous amount of energy. Antimatter is an incredibly energy dense, you know, fuel source, because when it contacts regular matter, it explodes. And so that is how they sustain the warp drives, since there's, you know, no such thing as that, you know, dilithium crystals. So we're using antimatter instead. Uranium, you'll recall, is what House Marlowe used to make itself wealthy. That's for sublight drive, for actual rockets. They tend to be nuclear, and to launch a fusion reaction, you need to use uranium as a catalyst to start a fission reaction to get to the fusion reaction. And it's of course not a very common metal, so that's how the Marlows made their money. So Treebeard, thank you for the 14 Canadian dollars. Thank you, it's very cool of you. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me on the channel too. Same goes for you, Jimmy. I should have said that at the beginning. All right, so let me jump in then at the beginning and stop talking about stuff that you can find out if you read page 1. Chapter 1, Twilight. Night had fallen on Akana and clung about the rooftops and bristling antennae that crowned the old refinery like weathered tombstones. No light of moon was there, and the stars kept silent vigil, distant and cold as the gray sands that flatly stretched to the horizon all around. "A tale won't know what hit them," Krim said, whispering despite the relative safety of the ship around us. I sensed the anticipation in the man, sensed it in all the men about me, the soldiers huddled like the Achaeans in the bowels of their wooden horse. Each one of them seemed to be holding his breath. "It better not," groused Polino. "The fleet's still 3 hours behind." "Heat sinks are holding, my lord," said the pilot officer, reassuring. "Only way they'll see us coming is if they sight us out a window." I knew the pilot was right. The Ascalon was the fastest ship in our fleet, a Chalice-class interceptor whose massive heat sinks made it possible to mask its sublight emissions for days, thus making it invisible to heat and light detection and perfect for such stealth missions as ours. It was a small ship, a mere 500 feet from end to end, its hydroponics and life support systems designed to support an active crew of perhaps 10 men, and fuel crushes to sustain another 40. A small compliment, but enough, I prayed, for our task. 3 hours. We had 3 hours to secure the Yamato Fuel Works at Verdi Planum. Peering out the slit window, I could clearly see the silver line of the bundled hadron colliders. Fully operational, the machines produced kilotons of antimatter a day, iron hard synthesizing the volatile substance from the collision of the smallest quanta to fuel the sector's starships. In the distance, I could make out the silver domes where containment silos waited to be hauled from Ekana's surface to high orbit. Without antimatter, our starships could not travel faster than light's slow speed. Without Ekana, the local capital at Nessus, and by extension the great mass of the Imperial Navy in the Centurine provinces, was as good as crippled. It was a cunning target. It was not like the Cielson to choose cunning targets. Not like most Cielson. Something of my disquiet must have registered on my face, for Polino asked, "You all right, Had?" I snapped my attention to the other man, found him watching me with shrewd eyes. When I'd first met Polino on Emesh centuries before, he'd been a grizzled old soldier, one-eyed and scarred. Decades of loyal service to myself and to the Imperium had won him a new eye and a second youth, while I, whose palatine genetic advantages promised me centuries, had grown older. Polino had slept for nearly 100 years on ice aboard the Tamerlane, while I had served as counselor to the Magnarch on Nessus. I had passed him by, and even still there was a spark of almost paternal concern in the once older man's face. "This attack has Doriaika's name all over it," I said. Sure, I was right. The scourge of earth, they called it. The prophet, prince of the princes of the Cielson, great enemy of man. While most of the great Cielson warfleets migrated from system to system, burning and pillaging entire worlds as they went, Doriaika moved deliberately. Its alien mind had grasped our own strategy with a vision none of its fellows possessed. It burned shipyards, disrupted supply chains, captured legionary transports. Polino made a face. "You don't know that." "I do," I said, eyes flitting over the masked and armored soldiers of our cadre. "My Red Company." Raising my voice, I addressed them all. "I want the refinery cleared before our fleet arrives." I leaned away from the bulkhead, one hand grasping the loop on the padded arch above my head to steady myself. "I want clean knife work, lads. We must not alert their ships to our presence." It was imperative we seize the fuel works by hand. It took one errant shot from a ship's tactical maser or misplaced photonic explosive to detonate the huge AM reservoirs beneath the outlying domes, and there was enough antimatter on Icana to transform Verdi Planum from plateau to crater and crack the planet's crust. "Clean as can be, Lord," said Krim, one hand checking the set of knives on the bandolier he wore. The Ascalon banked into a low arc, its knife-like body cupping the air as we slid lower. The silver line of the foundry's colliders swung into place beneath us. "Prepare yourselves!" I exclaimed, and pressed the trigger on my suit's neck flange, which triggered the helmet to rise. Metal panels rose about my face, unfurling like the petals of a flower, and closed about my head. The suit's augmented vision flickered on a moment after, twin cones of light projected onto my retinas. Polino and Krim had done the same. A sea of armored soldiery stared back at me, featureless ivory masks with a pitchfork and pentacle of the Red Company painted over the spot where their left eye should be. We had to move fast. A few seconds where the Ascalon hovered over the top of the collider were the few seconds when the Ascalon hovered over the top of the collider were the most risky. It would be all too easy for any of the Xenobites in the refinery ahead to spot the vessel crouching like a vulture above the pipeline. Venting the cabin in 5, 4, 3. The end, the pilot officer's countdown vanished beneath the rush and thunder of blood in my ears. Almost 70 years I'd been trapped on Nessus, my punishment for surviving my trial on Thermon. That trial had cost me another 12 years. It had been more than a century since I'd faced the Cielson in battle. So long. The shudder of my own heart was drowned by a violent hissing as the Ascalon's rear compartment was vented of air. Ekana had none, and so the ramp opened on grim silence. All the better. There would be no wind to carry our voices or the clangor of our feet. I led the way down the ramp, Polino close at my side. Ahead, a few 100 yards of covered pipeline marched toward the squat and brutish buildings of the refinery complex. Not far ahead to either side, the rails of ladders rose, and with a gesture I ordered that my men should fan out. I paused to let them filter past, and turning back, watched the black blade of our starship rise on silent repulsor fields, ramp closing. Then it was gone, a darker shadow against the dark of night. Lord Marlowe, the man who had spoken, was a common trooper, the last in line. I realized then that I'd been standing atop the collider for far too long. My gaze lingered on the silver expanse of the machine, where it marched out to the horizon. The refinery's hadron colliders girdled the entire planet, so if I'd wanted, I might have followed the track of that machine about the planet's equator until I came upon the complex from the far side. A single road, unbroken, a ring around the world. Lord Marlowe, the man said again. Stirring at last, I followed him down the ladder. All right. I think I'm going to stop there. That's just the first scene, and maybe do some questions. It may be that we do another section. I've got a couple ideas what those could be, without going too far into the book. And so yeah, why don't we do some questions, folks, and just sort of go with it. So let's see, who have I missed? Nexy Shadow says, I rock. Thank you, Nexy Shadow. Very kind of you, as always. Let's see. Isaiah says, I think we'll go ahead. Decision to wait until Ashes of Man to get both books at once. That's reasonable. Peanut Butter Jelly Man, I'm eagerly awaiting my copy to get here from Quail Ridge. Excited for it to arrive. I should say, because a couple of people have asked, and I worry that I'd falsely advertised. The reason the Quail Ridge books, signed books, are going to ship a little bit later. They were never going to be here today because I need to sign them still. And I won't be there until Thursday, and I'm just going to sign all of their orders after my signing on Thursday, after which they will send them. So I apologize if any of you thought that they were coming today. I'm very, very sorry, but they will be on their way directly, and they will be signed, right? I thought I had mentioned that more than I did. I went back and checked. It was in a couple newsletters. I'd said that, but I may not have been as clear about that as I could have been. And so I will make sure the next time around, and I will make sure that note is highlighted. Antros, congrats, Mr. Ruocchio. So excited for my book to arrive. Well, thank you, Antros. Welcome back. Isaiah, well, my teacher got locked out of the system, so I'll be able to listen to the stream in full. Oh, never mind. Ooh, did we lose Isaiah? Well, school's important. Jake says hello. Look forward to seeing you all experience emotional damage. Yes, it is that kind of book. Scott says, as a fellow Hobbes super fan, talking to them, feels cheated if the author isn't hurting them. Well, you should probably talk to somebody about that, Scott. People aren't supposed to hurt you. Matthias says, hey, Mr. Ruocchio, whose flesh are you consuming in conjunction with the Alzalbo drug? Excellent question. I am not a corpse eater, but if there were somebody's life that I would want to experience, that's a really good question. Is Lord Byron's brain available? Because I would love to know what that was like. So yeah, we can dig Lord Byron up, and there's anything left to work with. That would be interesting. But as I say, I am not a Vodalarius, so we shall see. Vodalus is, of course, too obsessed with returning to the Empire of Typhon and taking humanity backwards. Let's see. Next, the hypothetical question: how would you outline a trilogy of trilogies? Well, probably the same way I did this, essentially, right? So we're talking about 9 books. We're doing probably 7. This will probably be a 7-book series. I would have a vague notion of what the overarching plot would be, and I would compartmentalize, right? If it's going to be 3 distinct, trilogies of books, I would look at the first one first. I would know very, very loosely what I would want books 4 to 9 to be. And I wouldn't really worry about them. I'd focus on 1 through 3 at a time, figure out where 3 is going to end, and then I would work backwards from that. Well, I would have that ending, and then I would go to the beginning and try to catch up to the ending. But I would do that one book at a time. I think the only real way that you can do this sort of thing is one book at a time. And so there have been I've talked about this before, like the Coliseum scene in Demon in White was something that I knew I wanted to write. Like since I was a kid, I thought catching a lightsaber with your bare hand would be cool. So you have to figure out how to make that happen, right? And when it would be appropriate for that to happen. So when I had that idea, I didn't know that it was going to be in Demon in White. I didn't know that I was going to write a book called Demon in White. I didn't know it was going to be under those circumstances or who Urshan was. I just had that part of the idea, right? And so as you outline, right, you reach these when you have this big story, right? Because this story I've wanted to tell forever, right? In some version or other. You do it incrementally. So I knew where I wanted book 1 to end, and then I worked towards that. And then when I got to book 2, I knew where book 2 needed to start. I knew where book 2 needed to end. And so I outlined that one. And so it's been the same process. So if I were to do a 9-book series, right, especially if it's 3 trilogies, I would compartmentalize. The only way to solve problems is by breaking them into smaller and smaller parts, right? You can't like eat a whole pizza at once, right? Like no one's mouth is big enough. Though many people have tried, I'm sure. But you can, cut it into pieces, right? And you can cut pieces into pieces and take bites off those pieces. And it's sort of, I think I've talked about this before, right? Like that's how Marduk kills the dragon in the Enuma Elish, right? He throws a net over Tiamat and then cuts her into pieces, right? And that's how he destroys this big dragon that no one else can kill, one bite at a time, right? And that's how we solve all of our problems, right? So that's how I would outline any large project, be that 9 books or 27, right? A trilogy of trilogies of trilogies. It wouldn't matter. I would discourage anyone from trying to start with anything that's 27 books long, though. You might want to start smaller. When I was doing this, I thought it was going to be 4 books, and then I thought it was going to be 5. And because of the book splitting and things, it's probably going to be 7. I should know about that definitively relatively soon. James always wondered how the Palatine mind can process these huge time jumps. Does the human mind process that concept of living for years at a time and sleeping on ice, waking up again? That's a really good question. I don't think that people are really cognizant of like the actual passing time in the way that you would be like, oh, like I slept a full night or I slept half a night. I don't think that anyone's brain is calibrated to like even consider, oh, I just slept for 80 years, right? So I think I think that waking up from fugue probably feels like waking up with like a bad hangover, right? Um, and uh, and so most of the like how time passes stuff is stuff you have to really acclimate to. Like, oh, Steven is 40 years older now, or like Jimmy is dead, or whatever, right? I think it would be shocking and uncomfortable probably every single time. It's easier if your friends all live to be 800 years old. Uh, and especially if they don't really age from like age 30 until age 750, which is kind of how the Palatines, the really fancy ones, the Cinnabarid houses, right, the peerage houses, they'll last that long. Some of the lesser Palatines will age a little bit more gradually. So the really the really purple, the really blue bloods will be pretty young most of their lives, effectively, right? And so one of the marks of the higher status Palatine is extended youth within the context of their extended lives, and not just overall life extension. So that would be a huge factor. So yeah, no, fugue would not be a pleasant thing. I don't think I would want to do this. Brendan says, pretty sure I could read a technical manual written by this guy. Such good prose. Well, thank you. I took actually one tech writing class in college for like 2 weeks, and then I dropped it before the drop date because I realized this was not something that I wanted to do. They were like, we're going to write documentation for Microsoft Office in this class, and I was like, oh, no, I don't want to do that, so I dropped it. It was not something I wanted to do. Dan says that was awesome. Well, thank you, Dan. Um, Locke says, hey, what's your method inspiration for naming people, titles, planets, etc., etc.? That's a really big question, Locke, and so it really depends. The easy one is the planets. Planets are easy. I have a giant scalable vector map of the Roman Empire that I got from I forget where. So I have this big file, and it'll scroll pretty much down to the village level, and I will scroll around it until I find a place name that I think is cool. So almost all of the planets in the Solon Empire, at least, are named after towns, villages, cities, regions from the Roman Empire circa 180. Which is I think when this map is representing. It's about 140. I think it's around the end of the reign of Trajan is when this map is the Roman Empire at its largest, and so I will look through for that. So with other cultures, say the Lothrians who are in this book, Padmarak is a corruption of I think the Belarusian word for foundation, because it is where their culture is founded. And so there's usually a reason for why things are called what they are. There are exceptions. Sometimes I just think something sounds cool. Jad does not mean anything. It just was what I wanted to call the central planet of that culture. And so sometimes I'll work backwards from something that I just think sounds cool. So there are all sorts of different reasons, but Solid Imperial planets are easy. They all come from that map because they're all really LARPing as Romans. There are still exceptions. There's a planet Obatala that gets referenced in Empire of Silence. Obatala is a Yoruba god, a Central African god. Of course, we're going to run out of Roman and Greek gods eventually to name planets and moons after. We kind of blew them all in the solar system, which is disappointing. And so actually you'll find too, in a couple places, there are minor planets that are mentioned that are also the names of moons in the solar system. So some of those names got recycled. And some things got renamed and things like that. So I see Orion asked the same question. As far as titles and character names, actually, let me do cities first since you asked. Cities are usually a little bit more random. It depends on how specific I want to be. What's a good example is what's a good example of a city name and how I did this? Medua is actually just something I thought sounded good. It's kind of like Padua, right? It's kind of got an Italian sound to it, but it doesn't mean anything. Each planet in the Solon Empire will speak Galactic Standard, but there are also going to be some pretty local, idiosyncratic languages that are descended from Standard in like isolated mountain villages and things like that. And that's just going to happen kind of everywhere. You leave the plebeian population alone for 1,000 years, and they will develop their own language. They may still speak Galactic Standard or be vaguely conversant in it. They may have some like weird slang usages and things like that. And so a lot of the place names are a little freer to be more like local place names are freer to be a little bit more idiosyncratic and random, just because I'm trying to simulate the idiosyncratic nature of those local dialects. So like Borosivo doesn't mean anything either. Every now and then, there will be a name. There's a city in Ashes of Man briefly called Bennu, and Bennu is a kind of bird like the phoenix that is reborn. And it's a new city that they're building on this it's sort of a scene setting thing for a chapter in book 5. It's a new city after Sales and Conquest that they're building, so they named it symbolically. But very often place names are going to be just phonetically interesting in a way to simulate that kind of local dialect thing. Character names too, usually I'll think about the culture that this person is from, whether that's Solon or Cielson or whatever, right? And it needs to be appropriate. So Solon imperial names are either usually English for the really old families or Greek because they've got, or Latin, they've got that classical bent to them. And of course, the old families are all descended from the English, right? Especially the imperial house and the ones right around it. But you've also got some other royal families, like we see in Demon and White. We see the Hohenzollerns are still around, the Habsburgs, the Bourbons have all been by historical happenstance preserved. as well as the Yamato dynasty, the Japanese family, is still around. They've been around for 3,000 years already in real life, right? So, sort of a joke and a gamble that they're going to make it another 20,000. But I'm not betting against them. Their record is, they're still here. And some others too. So it's not just European royal families that are still around, right? The House Mahidol is the Thai royal family. They're still around too. So a lot of these old monarchic families escaped Earth and kind of took refuge in things like that. That's how they survived. So you've got some names that have direct ties like that. In the same way that local place names are going to be idiosyncratic, local character names for plebeians are going to be pretty idiosyncratic as well. They're just going to be things I think sound interesting. Sometimes they will be references. I think there are like 4 characters named William in the book, including the Emperor, and that's because they're named after the Emperor, right? So you get some characters that are named after other characters, right, and things like that, which is confusing, but is totally something that happens in real life. And then another example, right, the Tavrosi have Southeast Asian and Nordic names. How those peoples got together on the way out of Earth is anybody's guess. I thought it would be really weird and different, so I did that for the Tavrosi and for Velka. So, but with main characters, usually, if they're human, there's some symbolic or even anti-symbolic, logic behind their name. Alistair is Alistair because House Marlowe has a lot of devil imagery, and it's Crowley, right? Even though it's spelled differently, but I hate the way that he spelled his name. It's ugly. Much like the rest of him. But I digress. Hadrian's name doesn't mean anything. We don't know what Hadrian means, so I picked this old antique name that doesn't really have a meaning. So it really is a case by case basis with character names. In response to the emotional damage thing, Jimmy says, death is in the title. It is. I wasn't messing around. Treebeard says, I can confirm you did not slip the Sword of Damocles line into KOD. I did not realize it was in all of the other books, and it was too late to get it in this one. So, whoops, I didn't realize there was a pattern there. Brent, so time skips of large magnitude are prevalent throughout the series. Did you always plan to have those large time skips, or did you decide that after the first book? By the way, I dig time skips. I think I decided on it at some point that it was going to be a staple at some point writing the first book. I don't think it was something I had in mind going into the whole series. Although it is kind of inevitable, right? We're dealing with a guy who lives a really long time anyway. But I realized this. I think I've told this story before. So if anyone's heard me say this, I apologize. Watching Matt Smith's last episode of Doctor Who, because I used to be a really big Doctor Who fan. Some people don't know that about me. They think I'm the Star Wars guy. Star Wars is cool, but Doctor Who was my thing for like all of high school and most of college. And then towards the end of Stephen Moffat's run, it just started to not work for me. And then the current guy is just terrible. The guy who's running it, I just cannot watch it anymore. But Matt Smith's last episode, not to really spoil Doctor Who for anybody, but his version of the Doctor ages from being, he was like 29 when they filmed that episode, all the way up to being this like super decrepit, like 1,000-year-old, like prosthetic makeup, white wig, old man. And I realized what they were doing was they were trying to age him credibly because he appears as middle-aged at one point as well. They wanted to make sure they covered all their bases so that if they wanted to bring Matt Smith back at any point, in 20 years for an anniversary special or something, they had a justification for why he looked 20 years older, because this is constantly a joke in Doctor Who. And I realized that that was really, really clever. And one of the things that you could do with that sort of time skip, right, is tell more stories later, right? And I thought about Star Wars too, and the time skip between Star Wars films, and how that has allowed Star Wars to be this big property, right? They're able to go back and do books between movies. They're able to do comic books between movies. Of course, where that started to go wrong was they started making those basically required reading if you wanted to understand the new movies. The Red Stormtroopers makes sense if you read the art book. I digress. And so I thought that was, obviously there's some real advantages to that, right? You're able to go back and tell stories like The Night Captain, or Demons of Ere, or whatever. And so I actually started planning these noodle incidents, right? Like the pirates, right? Which Hadrian talks about in Demon in White, and that's the Night Captain story, right? So that I could specifically go back and tell them if I ever wanted to. And people would be interested in them, and it would build in interest for those stories should they ever be written. And some of them may never be, right? I may never go back and write the Pharos incident, for example, but I could, and that would be a decent title for the book. Part of the problem with some of those stories too is that they wouldn't really work in first person with just Hadrian's point of view. Um, you know, there's like a Valka story in between Demon in White and this book that is not in this book. And it's not in this book because it really is her story, and doing it with Hadrian's point of view would not work, right? And so there's a question of like, what's the right medium for the message, right? And so the right medium for some of these stories is not Hadrian's point of view, right? The right medium for some of these stories might not even be books, right? It might be a short story, or it might be and like I talked about how I don't want to do a Cielson book, right? But I could do a Cielson comic book, right? So it's a question of like what the right way to tell any given story is. And so by building these gaps in, I made a lot of long-term freedom for myself in revisiting these stories if I want to. And so that was always deliberate, probably from somewhere midway in production on Empire of Silence, but it was never a day zero thing. Oh, let's see. Dan, I know you're a rock metal guy. If this was adapted to the screen, would you prefer the classical symphonic music or something more electronic, or even better, thumping metal? I have a dream that like Yngwie Malmsteen would score the Sun Eater. I think that would be amazing. It'll never happen, but I want to go visit the universe where it does. I think a lot of Star Wars' success, and I think George Lucas has agreed, is down to John Williams, right? And just how high quality and distinctive that is, right? And we've come to really expect the same sort of music from a lot of movies. And I like got in trouble for complaining that I wanted the Dune soundtrack to be a little bit more melodic, because it's a very weird soundtrack. But as different as it is, people seem to really like it because it's really different. And while I would prefer to have something that I could, hum from Dune, didn't really get that unless you want to like, chant really rapidly. I think it was distinctive enough that it left an impression on people. And I think another way to do that would be to use heavy metal instrumentation. And of course, there is an Yngwie Malmsteen song that shows up canonically in one form or another. They've confused him for a classical composer, which is of course very easy to do. He's a fabulous guitarist, one of the very best of all time. I think he would say the best, but I think it would be really, really cool. So let's see. Treebeard, how do you maintain fidelity on the timeline and ages of the characters? Do you have a master document that tracks all this information? With a lot of the characters, it doesn't matter that much. So I don't need to know exactly how old, say, Polino is. Because I know approximately, I know how old he appears to be and how old he acts, right? And those are two different numbers. But it doesn't really matter because Hadrian's not giving you enough data to track it. There are a couple exceptions where characters have lived a little bit too long, and so I have to go back and make justifications for why and how. And in accidentally writing myself into these corners, sometimes I force myself to come up with some interesting solutions, and those actually and those corners, right, are where a lot of the opportunity to be really creative comes in, because you have to sort of work around these problems that you've made for yourself. So there are a couple of characters, and I won't say who they are. Actually, I can tell you, one is the Emperor. The Emperor has been alive for too long, and so the question is why, right? And that is a plot point a little bit in this one, and it's gonna come up a little bit more in subsequent books why he's doing this. And it actually, the solution I came to is one that informs a lot of his character and speaks to his character as well, but also addresses the problem. And so weirdly, I've managed, I think, to give myself problems that ended up leading to an improved, story by the end, by not keeping very stringent track. The only characters that I really keep track of are Hadrian and Falco. at any given point. I have timeline documents for them because most of the other characters aren't around all the time, right? And so so yeah, so no, I don't actually keep very close track because a lot of those characters does not matter that much. Bug Zero, have to get through a little bit of a backlog on content to catch up. Do you ever stream Elden Ring? If releasing 2 books back to back wasn't punishing enough, I have not streamed Elden Ring yet. I was going to. I was going to do my. I was going to stream my first playthrough, but I sat down. I wanted to just play it a little bit on my own to begin with, and I was having so much fun. I decided I was just going to do the first playthrough on my own. When by on my own, I mean I've been playing a lot with my brother. I've been playing a lot with one of my old friends, and so I've just been taking some personal time to do that. I think what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do is either play a new character or I'll do New Game Plus with the one that I've got, and I'll probably do New Game Plus because, to be perfectly honest, I am not the world's best Soulsborne player, so. I think it might be a little bit more, let's say, cinematic if I use my New Game Plus file. Just because I will have decent equipment and I will be able to actually accomplish things a little bit more easily. So we'll see. But I may end up doing a new character. I haven't decided. We shall see. But it is coming up. I want to finish this playthrough first. But I'm loving it. It's great. I don't know if it's my favorite of all of them. I think I still have a soft spot for Dark Souls from a narrative standpoint. And I think Bloodborne might be the best one of the bunch still. But I don't know at the same time if I could go back and play Dark Souls after this because I think the level of polish is a lot higher. My understanding is the PvP isn't as good, but that was never something that I particularly cared about because it was not good enough to be competitive. So my friend who I mentioned is really competitive, like Dark Souls PvP player, and I am not particularly interested in doing that. So, but yeah, I will be getting to it here soon. Whenever I finish this file, and I'm taking it slow. I'm really enjoying it. And so when I do play it, it'll be with a knowledge of like where things are, which may remove some of the novelty, but I think it'll be fun. I realize I have missed a super chat, but I don't want to get stuck in the spot, so I will come to it when I come to it in just a minute. Allie, what is your ideal pizza? Pepperoni, not pepperoni, red peppers, onions, mushrooms. Pepperoni is all right, but I like the vegetable collection a little bit better. Daryl, hey Daryl, trying to finish Doom Messiah today, then I'll be back in the Sunday universe. As I get closer and closer to KOD, I will tread with caution. Well, yeah, awesome. Doom Messiah is fun too. So I hope you enjoy that one as well. Local Lima wanted to drop in and say congratulations. Thank you, sir. Lucas, sup, Rocky? What's up? Let's see. Albert, it's such a cool way to name planets. Thanks, man. Lucas, do you feel relieved or nervous about having your book out there for us to consume? I'm very nervous about this one. It seems like it is mostly going over pretty well. Talked to a few people, and they seem to be liking it. So that is good. I don't know if anybody saw, but I was getting review bombed over on Goodreads, which is very that's a new experience. I guess that means I've made it. I officially have enemies or an enemy because I think it was one guy just making a bunch of sock puppet accounts or even botting. Was dropping a bunch of 1-star reviews. So a bunch of people were reporting them earlier. So it's silly. I don't particularly care. I'm not that bothered by it, but it was part of the new experience of this one. But I was nervous about this book in general, just because, as folks will see, it's a big one, despite being the shortest one. So, let's see. Lucas, Jad doesn't have the Guy Gabriel K connection. Not consciously, no. I realized that after I went and reread the books, or not reread, but I picked up Children of the Earth and Sky when it came out, which was a couple. I think when it came out, was it Children of the Earth and Sky? It was one of them. It might have been Brightness long ago. And I realized, like, oh yeah, that's the same name, isn't it? It's hard with 1-syllable names. There are only so many words. But no, that wasn't on purpose. Let's see. Albert, where did the name Gadodin come from? Is it a Roman town, as you said? No. Gadodin is the Gadodin, the Gadodin, I can't say it, is a Brythonic poem about it's the text that Arthur is earliest mentioned in, like in writing. It's an old Brythonic piece, and so yeah. Ben Hermes, dude, I just finished the book. Loved it, but damn, it was dark. Yes, yes, it was. I make no apologies to borrow from Hadrian. Yeah, that's a fast read. I remember, who was it? I can't remember who I was talking to. It was another writer. I was talking about how much I love Gene Wolfe, and she was telling me that she met Gene Wolfe like back in the 90s or something and had him sign her Book of the New Sun. And she said, "Oh my gosh, I love these books. I read them in 4 days." And he looked at her silently for about 30 seconds. He's like, "It took me 4 years to write them." And I've been feeling that a bit today because a few people have come through and said they finished the book already. And it took me about 10 months to write. Which is a very strange feeling because you guys experience the books very differently than I do, right? Because I live with one for like a year, like on a daily basis, and I joke with my wife because she's the sort of person who like sits down to start a task and won't like get up until it's finished. And I was like, don't write a book you'll buy, right? Because it's like it was like a 200-300 day process, right? Working on this sort of thing, and that's just the writing, right? That's not with the 8 months of waiting, to hear back about revision notes and the 2 months of revising and copy editing and all that. And so it's just funny when people go through it in a day like that. I don't mean to seem sad or anything. It's just a very strange talking about the Palatine's, right, and fugue and time passing differently. It's sort of like that. I think it's you guys are traveling through 10 months of my life in 24 hours. So let's see. James, did you get it early? Take hours an hour? Oh, no, I was talking to Ben. Ben just reads really, really fast. I used to. I have slowed down in my dotage. I used to be a really fast reader, and I just lost it somewhere in like high school. James says, by the way, I need the Ilex, Crim, and Lorien storming the Chantry Mission Impossible short story. That may be one of those that I never write. I think not writing that one is more rewarding than writing it. I haven't decided. Let's see. There it is. Nathan, I'm sorry that I have left your super chat sitting so long. I didn't want to miss anyone else's questions and get lost. Not everybody's comment is yellow and sticks out. Nathan, on chapter 42, sir, you brought me from weeping tears of horror to weeping tears of joy and sweet catharsis. Amazing. Chapter 42. Yeah. Okay. I'll see how you feel in another chapter or so. Thank you for the $10, sir. Let's see. Scott says, let me say comic graphic novels aren't really my thing, but the idea of a CLC comic has me jazzed. I really hope I can do it. People have been asking about Kickstarters, and that may be a thing that I do by way of crowdfunding in the next couple of years. It won't be imminently because the most important thing is book 6, and I do not want to be one of those writers who forgets the sort of main project to go do side stuff and leave you all hanging. The most important thing for me is to finish book 6 and book 7 if there's going to indeed be a book 7, which again I think is going to happen, but I'm not sure. So that's the most important thing. After that, we'll see. My plan is, and I know some people are going to groan to hear this, my plan is to write shorter books after this series, just because of the paper thing. It just is a more commercially viable model. So they may be 150,000 words. Some of them may even be shorter. We'll see. But the cool thing about doing that is it will free up some more of my time to work on other projects at the same time, because I would really like to be able to do more different things. And now, of course, because book 6 will be the first book that I work on beginning to end full time, because Ashes of Man was obviously written as part of Kingdoms of Death originally. And I started working on that while I still had a day job. So I'm interested to see how things change So, Bug Zero, other than a Sealson graphic novel, any other offshoot stories you'd live to be a reader in your universe, to be a reader in your universe rather than the sole creator? Maybe Karn Sagara's first life. I think Karn Sagara's first life is a lot less interesting than the second one. And so I don't know what that means, but that's just a feeling that I've had on this subject because people want to see the Karn story. And so I don't quite know exactly what that story is, but I feel like that's my instinct on the question. So we will see if that ever happens. So Orion says, can't play Elden Ring because of my setup. It'll be a treat to watch along. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think I'm going to call it not GRRM plays Elden Ring because, of course, I am not George R. R. Martin. So I think it'll be fun. Severian says Sekiro is still the best for me, but Elden Ring is a close second. I missed Sekiro. It came out in an awkward window where I didn't have a lot of time, so I want to get back to it eventually. I was less interested in it just for setting reasons. It was less evocative for me than especially Bloodborne. There's not a lot of games like Bloodborne setting wise, but even compared to the main Souls games. And in a lot of ways, Elden Ring really is just big Dark Souls. It's got a lot of the same sort of motifs, character motifs and things like that. You've got your sort of like Lord of Light and stuff, and you've got the chaos thing, which is kind of like Izalith and the demons. And there's clearly a lot of like recycled ideas. And I feel like Miyazaki is one of those creators who keeps refining the same program, in terms of storytelling and things like that. I'm surprised, how much it feels like him and George Martin's contributions feel very marginal. It feels almost like just character names. I would be really interested to see the notes that he gave them and to see what the difference is between that and the final product. Miyazaki's hinted that it was pretty significantly different, which I find a very curious way of doing things. But I really do like Elden Ring. I think it's awesome. I think I have like 60 hours in. I can't remember the last time I put 60 hours into a video game. It's been a long time. Civilization 6 notwithstanding. Which, yes, I may also play at some point on the channel. I'm a little hesitant to make the channel too many video games because I'm worried I'm going to alienate people. But I think doing some every now and then would be all right. Truebeard says, Kingdom's Death of all the Sun Eater books will still be the longest, mainly because of the emotional suspense in the book. It's great. Well, thanks, man. Mark Bollinger, I can't remember any particular instance of it thus far, but does Sun Eater account for time dilation for high-speed interstellar travel? It doesn't, because warp drive does not really have that problem, right? The warp drives are basically like Miguel Alcubierre style warp drives, right? So you got the space bubble envelope that moves around the ship. So it does not account for time dilation because it's not actually moving. It's space that's moving. And so the long delays are not because of dilation or anything like that. The problem instead is with just the actual duration of the journey. If I had done, and I thought about doing the story just with time dilation and having the same sort of dislocating, time problems. The problem with that is those equations are known, and we know how much dilation occurs at various speeds and distances, and it would have made the series prohibitively difficult for me to write because I do not do very well with mathematics. And so I decided not to tell that story. As much as I love and I really love Alistair Reynolds, I just couldn't do a story like Revelation Space. So no, it does not account for time dilation, with one exception. That is my short story, The Archinaut, which is out next month in a book called Time Troopers, which I edited with Hank Davis, who I've edited several anthologies with. It's a collection mostly of old stories, but I wrote a new one for it. And The Archinaut deals with the early Empire, about ISD 3000, and a ship that does get around traditionally, let's say. And so you want to check that one out next month. Time Troopers. It's got a Kieran Yanner cover, actually. Not a Sun Eater cover, but Kieran did the art for that one as well. My old employer sort of added him to their roster of cover artists, which is pretty cool. Michael Esparza, welcome back, sir. Given that the book is so dark, do you have any recommendations on a happier or lighter book as a follow-up? Should I just say no so you have to sit in it? No. I don't off the top of my head. I have not been reading that much lately. I'm rereading Lord of the Rings right now, which is occasionally, one of is brighter in general, but it's still pretty heavy sometimes. But I'll stick with that. I'm reading Lord of the Rings right now, so I think everybody should read Lord of the Rings again. Just my feelings on the subject. Let's see. Yeah, Goodreads review bombing is super lame. I really like. I think when I posted about it earlier just to let everyone know what was happening because I didn't want anyone to like think the book actually sucked. But people were trying to like make me feel better. Like I'm totally like I just don't get it. I must have irritated somebody, but it's I suppose an inevitable consequence of one's audience getting larger that one eventually collects such people. I talking to Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews, right? He gets the same number of dislikes on basically every video. So a few people have subscribed to him just to make sure he has a bad day. But you can't really think about these things. In full disclosure, I blocked Goodreads on like every device I own like 3 years ago. I can look at it very occasionally, but I had to stop myself from trying to like check reviews on a daily basis. Anyway, just because it's not a good practice. So that I didn't even know it was happening. Let's see. Who am I missing? Oh yeah, Treebeard says Discworld is a good pick me up. I have never read Terry Pratchett, but I do hear he is funny, so that might be a good fit. Allie says the Vorkosigan Saga. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Read The Warrior's Apprentice by Lois McMaster Bujold. It is a delight. One of my favorite science fiction series, and it's a blast. It can be pretty heavy in a couple places, but it is mostly just fun. And it is, I think, mandatory reading, and it's a great, great series. Lucas says, I would love to have a historical fiction novel from you. I would like to do it. I would like to do it at some point. Not imminently. It won't be the next book after Hadrid, but I have at least one idea. It wouldn't necessarily be outright historical fiction. There might still be some fantastic elements, but I do have an idea. Albert, do you have anything planned for after you finish Sun Eater? Yes, I have a few plans. The first plan is going to be to write some standalones in this universe because I have no intention of leaving this universe behind. I will always be writing stories in this universe, in this continuity. They won't always be big series. I do not plan on doing another giant series for a little while. By the time I finish this one, I expect to have some small children, and so I want to write smaller projects for a couple years just to protect my own sanity. It's another reason I want the books to get a little bit shorter. The other reason, I should say, I want the books to get a little bit shorter is they get short enough I can do 2 a year. I can't do two, 300,000 word books a year, but I can do two 200,000 word books a year. I'm doing it this year. And 200,000, you'll notice, if you look Kings of Death, is still not that short. So we shall see what happens. But yeah, so I want to do that. I do have some other series. I have another series I get in this universe. And I have I don't really know what to call it. Let's call it a sword and sorcery series. It's not epic fantasy precisely, but it is in a sort of older style, let's just say. But I do have an idea for that. And if Liam is here, I'm sure Liam just grinned. But we'll see what happens. But no, I think those standalones are going to happen first. And I may slip some standalones in that have nothing to do superficially or otherwise with the Sun Eater universe. So we shall see. Electric Horseman, welcome back. Watch Brian Lee Durfee do a review of your books. Him and Mike help me find you. Thank you for the newest book. Well, thank you. I love Brian. He's a great dude. I'm really excited about his third book coming out. And I saw he did a review of the new one. I'm glad he liked it. Let's see. Treebeard, Christopher, you play Civ 6. What's your favorite Civ? Mine is Menelik of Ethiopia. Yeah, Menelik's pretty good. I like Portugal. I like the Byzantines. Obviously, like the Romans, but I think my favorite is probably the Persians. Uh, doing that early military campaign transition to a cultural victory works every time, right? Because eventually the domination victory just becomes prohibitively annoying to try and do. So I'll play the Persians a lot. I'm a big Persophile anyway, so that's a fun one. Good old Cyrus with his scheming hands. I haven't played in a while though. I just got the new computer, and I was gonna sneak a couple Civ games in before Elden Ring came out, but that did not happen. So my old laptop just stopped being able to do it after a while. My kids play Elden Ring, Electric Horse and Finding False Walls. Yeah, there are a few of those floating around. Will you do a Robert Jordan type of book in the future? You mean like epic fantasy, or do you mean like a 20-book series? I do not expect that I will be doing any series that are that long, for a couple of reasons. The big one is that when you have series that are that long, usually subsequent volumes sell less than early ones. So, book one might sell this many, book two, three, four, five, and that kind of flattens out as it goes. Because readers who make it 4 books in will typically read 4 more, but you lose a lot of people in those first 2 and 3 books. And so, if you get tied up writing books 13, 14, 15, 16, and you're not Robert Jordan and you're selling millions of copies, you're probably losing out on the opportunity to reach a lot of new readers. And so this is why I usually recommend new writers do shorter series. I think 7 is honestly is too long strategically, but I planned on doing 5, and that was going to be my upper limit. And then because of the paper shortages, I got kind of tricked into doing 7. Or maybe 6. We'll see what happens. So I don't know about 20, but as far as epic fantasy goes, yeah, at some point. I do have a world for that. I'm trying to figure out when to do that. If I don't think it'll be soon, because if I were to transition into writing epic fantasy right after this, I would lose a lot of people who come to me for science fiction. It would be sort of, I've made this analogy before, it'd be like if your favorite metal band released a jazz album. It would be a little bit strange because there's actually a lot less readership crossover between science fiction and fantasy than people think. The really involved sorts of readers, like you folks who are here, you'll probably read either. But like the casual reader who's never signed up for the newsletter, who just picks up the books because they found them in the store, they might not follow me to a fantasy series. And so there's a question of career strategy involved in all of this, because I am not a big enough writer to just have millions of readers no matter what I write. And so there's a time in my career where it might be better to make that move than now. So we shall see. But my first love is fantasy. That Sword and Sorcery series I mentioned maybe doing at one point has a few asterisks attached to it, let's just say. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I tend to struggle with these genre distinctions anyway because I don't believe that science fiction and fantasy are genres at all. Because you can do a lot with them. I think if you look at paintings, right, genres are like landscapes and portraits. Genres in fiction should be things more like romance and mystery and adventure, and not science fiction, because science fiction can do all of those things. And so I get very confused and very frustrated when people start talking about, oh, is this science fantasy? Is it low fantasy? Is it, sword and sorcery? Where's the line? I don't really know. So I struggle with what to call some of these books sometimes. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna have to do way too much damn math if I wanted to do time dilation. Yeah, so it gets a little bit crazier with the with time dilation and warp drive. The reason the warp flights are so long, sorry, it took me a second to get my thoughts in order, is still because space is like way too big. Like people don't like really get a sense of how big space is, and it bugs me in the Star franchises that space travel is always instantaneous. Like, oh, quick, let's get on a light. There's not even time for lunch, Luke, before we get to Alderaan. It bugs me. Because it feels like nobody's actually traveling anywhere. The Star Wars galaxy feels like it's a town, and everybody's getting in their minivans and driving from Tatooine to Coruscant. And that's fine because you can do a lot of stuff with instantaneous space travel that I can't do. Like rapid response. And so there are advantages to telling a story like that. I obviously love most of Star Wars. Let's say, but yeah, there are some serious limitations. Although Sun Eater 4X game would be awesome. 100% on board. If anyone knows a game dev, I would be delighted to talk to them. Albert says, Orion sent me the perfect clip to describe how we feel after finishing the book. Sam's Tales It Really Mattered speech. Yeah, Ryan sent that to me too. That was really cool. Daryl, your story in Time Troopers, is there a placement in the Sun Eater universe to when to read it? No, you can read it anytime. It's totally, it's 15,000 years, 12,000 years before any of the main books. It's not related in any way. So you're totally cool. Electric Horseman, my favorite character of Terry Pratchett is Death. Yeah, that's usually the book I get recommended to me a lot. It's like Reaper Man or something. If I'm to read a Terry Pratchett, it's supposed to be that one. James, since The Quiet opens up the potential for a multiverse, any chance we ever get to see a branch of outcomes that change what happens in Sunday universe? So maybe, but I want to put an asterisk on this. It is not exactly a multiverse. There's only ever one series of events that happens. It is just that the other potential states exist and are accounted for by the universe in kind of a quantum informational sense, right? So like the positions that particles can occupy are sort of mathematically traceable, right? This is all like way over my head, except vaguely conceptually, right? And so the states that objects can be in, like here or there or whatever, or smashed into pieces in the case of my glass, right, exist as sort of like potential states, almost in like a platonic sense, right? Like there are these other states. So those other timelines exist kind of like as like think about them as like unexpressed properties. And so rather than thinking about there being parallel timelines, it is possible for someone that has the ability to perceive these different sort of quantum potential states to interact with them in the same way that we might interact with regular objects. They don't really exist as separate universes. There is not an infinite number of Hadrians. There is one Hadrian who exists in an infinite number of potential states, if that makes sense. And Hadrian does not really have the language to articulate this because what he's experiencing is really, really hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have his eyes. And so he's doing his best. That being said, are there ways to play with this? Absolutely, right? The easier way to do this, rather than just do like multiverse stuff, is just to do the bad historian takes, right? Or bootleg Gospels of Hadrian, right? And so I've actually talked to someone, let's say, about maybe putting out the original version of the book that I sold back in 2016 that became Empire of Silence, because it has a completely different second and third act. Everything after Hadrian leaves Delos is completely different, and even some stuff on Delos is completely different. And so having that either as a parallel universe thing, an artifact from one of those sort of suppressed quantum states, or as just a document that gets circulated that contains a lot of technical errors in it, would be something that's interesting. Because of course, one of the side effects of Hadrian's experience on the mountain in Demon and Light is that he has memories from a lot of those other quantum states that he has occupied. So he has a hard time untangling his own past sometimes. At least at this point in his life. That will change. So there's a lot to play with there, and then get very, very confusing. So I hope that I hope that helped rather than made things more confusing. But the short answer is yes, there are some other weird things that we could do. I think this is actually a really good case for there being a video game, because exploring player choice is a really interesting way to play with those potential alternate world states. Talking about the book being, long enough. Old Ben here finished it in less than a day. Said it was plenty short. What a legend. Let's see. Electric Horseman, would you ever co-write a book with Stephen King if possible? I don't suspect that it would be to begin with. I don't know Mr. King. Although one of my old editors is actually his daughter-in-law, which is kind of cool. But I don't really know that I want to co-write with anybody. I don't know that I could. I don't know that I have the temperament for it. I'm really, let's say, authorial in the sense of the word, meaning sort of dictatorial. And I don't know that that's conducive to working so closely with another person, be that, Stephen King or anybody. And so I don't know. I don't know. When I did the comic book, the Thor comic book, what I was really doing was directing, right? That's what the writer does when you write comic books, is sort of direct the artist. And it is the artist who is cinematographer and actor and art director and special effects. And they do like the rest of the movie, basically. And so all I was doing was kind of calling shots about what goes in panel 3 on page 2 and really letting the artist tell the story, right? And sort of stepping back. So I wasn't, there wasn't like a real like clash of butting of heads thing. And besides, I was working with Steve McNiven, right, who's like the best, right, and a damn nice guy. So like he made my life really, really easy. So there wasn't any reason to like sort of argue. But I feel like if we were writing prose with another person, that I would get in the other person's way and they would get in mine a lot. I don't know that I'm the right writer to co-write anything. That being said, never say never, right? Could happen. But even if I did, I don't think that Stephen King would happen. Just because I don't think he's interested. He certainly doesn't know I exist. So let's see. Treebeard Persia is awesome. We should play together one time. I warn you, I play the DDAI. Well, you'll beat me. Like I've been out of it for a little while, pal. So I probably am playing like king. So you'll kill me. So I need to train if I'm gonna play with you. I am, as they say, a filthy casual, at least in most things. The games that I'm really, really good at are like Super Mario World for the SNES, like those 2D Mario platformers. Oh no, I'll clean up. Really, like 2D platformers, I'm really good at, but most games, I am not the best player, which you will all see when I start streaming Elden Ring. And you'll all lose respect for me. All right, we'll see you later, Scott. Let's see. Losing some people here. Dan had to go to a meeting. Star Wars for the Bad Batch. Got the Bad Batch play on Disney. Oh, cool. Albert, is there any plan to do more Crispin stuff? Albert, it's already written. Tales of the Sun Eater, Volume 2 is going up for pre-order next week, right at the beginning of April. No, not next week, because next week is still March. Beginning of April, Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 2 is going to go up for pre-orders, coming out on June 1st of this year. It will only be an ebook, just like Volume 1. But its original story, never before seen by human eye, not me or my beta readers, is called The Four Devils, and it is a sequel to The Lesser Devil. It's just a novelette. It's like 12,000 words, so it's like 3-ish chapters long. But it does continue. Crispin's story a little bit. So yes, there is at least a little bit more Crispin coming. I do not have any long-term plans. I do have some vague ideas for some more. Like I could do a Crispin 2 novella, but my fear is that if I do that and I just do like 2 or 3 Crispin novellas, that I'm not writing novellas for Valka or Lorien, both of whom I have outlines for. So yes. So I'm worried about balancing doing more Crispin stuff versus more new stuff and try to keep everybody happy. The problem here is that I'm the only person who writes this stuff, right? I don't have a team. I'm not, James Patterson. Now, I'm not sure that I would want a team anyway, right? For the reasons we're talking about, the co-writing and stuff. I think that I would prefer to stay in control of how all of this rolls out. because I'm very particular and I have some very specific ideas about what this world is like, and I'm not sure, about bringing other people in. And I'm also not sure that's necessary. I don't know my audience is big enough to justify that much material. It's not Star Wars, right? So we'll see. I tend to think of myself in the tradition of, an Italian craftsman, right? And we're making like one bell, and it's going to be really, really nice, but we're not making like 800, uh, you know, uh, less nice ones. Mark, with warp, you also have to stop way outside the system, pointing away from anything you don't want to annihilate, else the accumulated high-energy particles in the border of the warp bubble act like a colossal cosmic shotgun and wipe out your destination. It is very interesting that you point that out. But yes, you are completely right. You're completely right. You'll actually notice that they usually do come out of warp pretty far out in the system and then move in. There are a couple of references that are made to technologies that kind of minimize that effect where possible. But that is actually something that's going to come up. Matthias, have you ever read Jack Vance? Absolutely. Yeah, I totally have. Tree, do you have a draft of Empire of Silence Prime? Meaning what the book looked like with the edits recommended by the publisher. I don't have the editorial notes anymore, but I do have a pre-edited draft. It's one of the things if you go and look at my Patreon, I've been serializing that book along with other new stuff you can get. You could get the first 4 chapters of the Kingdoms of Death. That's kind of irrelevant now. But you could look at a couple of my short stories. I just posted, I think, last month, Gutter Ballet, which is coming out in September. So you can read that early if you're a Patreon supporter at the appropriate level. And you'll be able to check out a couple chapters of Ashes of Man between now and December. So they'll be available early as well. So that might be something. If you want to go look at the first like 8 or 9 chapters of that alternate Empire of Silence are on there. But I'm also talking to some folks who want to do like a collector's edition of that because it would be a cool thing to do, So we'll see. Because it makes me feel like Tolkien, right? We've got like the War of the Jewels, right? The Morgoth's Ring, books like that. It's kind of a cool situation to be in. Electric Horseman, have you ever read I Am Legend? In the book was a short story called Witches' War or something like that. A bunch of teenage girls play an army coming and the girls destroy them. I never have. I saw the Will Smith movie, which I understand is very, very different, but I never went back and read the book. That was Richard Matheson, right? Who did a bunch of Twilight Zone episodes, I think. I think it's the same guy. No, I need to. You ever play the negative Mario World? You mean like the special worlds in Mario World, or I'm not sure. I know what you mean, Electric Horseman. Let's see. Albert says, "Let's go. I need another Marlowe family reunion." I can hear the meme right now, Albert. James says Valka first. Yeah, I wanted to write the Valka one between like books 3 and 4, and it didn't happen just because like things got real crazy around the beginning of 2020, and not least of which because I was getting married, but all the other stuff that happened in that year, and so it didn't work, and I was having a real hard time getting into it again. So Matt says still waiting for an Alistair Marlowe short story of interest to that point is the fact that I have just finished writing a like 8,000 word history of House Marlowe essay that is probably going to turn into a lore video here on this channel at some point in the relatively near future. But it is also going to be appearing in the back of Queen Amid Ashes and Other Stories, which is the next collector's edition book from Anderida Books. It's going to come out later this year. Rob and I should be starting talks about that here very, very soon. He said he needed to wait until at least March to get the ball rolling. So we may be jumping into that before too long. And so keep an eye out for that. It should be out probably before the holidays this year. And that will include all of the stories that are in Tales Volume 2, which is The Dragon Slayers, Fire in the Sky, Kill the King, Knowledge, Good Intentions, which is a Valka story, and The Four Devils that we were talking about, along with Queen of Mid-Ashes, which is a Hadrian novella. And this is an edited, expanded Queen of Mid-Ashes. It has an extra chapter from the version that appeared in Sword of Planet, which you can read today, alongside that House Marlowe story. So it's going to be a pretty nice collection. We'll have new art, hopefully by Kieran Yanner. He did Lesser Devil and other stories. We're hoping he'll do this one. So it'll be pretty slick. And so yeah, I want to do more of those novellas. I ended up writing Queen of Mid-Ashes, which was not a plan. I did not plan to do a Hadrian novella. He's got, novels. But I needed to write a story for Sword and Planet, and it fit the bill. And it ended up becoming a novella, sort of against my will. As for an Alistair short story, maybe. But obviously the House Marlowe history essay does touch a bit upon his rule and upon the rule of his father and all of the other Marlowe lords back to Julian. And even further back, it touches on their connections to the imperial house and why they are, of the peerage, despite their relatively low status and things like that. And so I think folks find that interesting. I want to write more essays, world building essays, but I obviously the prose fiction needs to come first. So I will be slipping those in where I can. I've got plans to write one on the 12 abominations and what they are and why they are abominable. And so that'll be the next one I started working on. But again, the stories have to come first. And by the time I get to book 6, I'll probably not be writing essays for a little while for the reasons that we talked about earlier. The books need to be the most important thing. Call me Zero. Ruocchio, just stopping in to say hello for the stream. Congratulations on the book launch. Thank you. Thank you. Severian, will I ever see Alistair and Hadrian meet again? Maybe. I don't want to answer that one. Sorry, Severian. Isaiah says Valka should really be the priority. Apologies to Crispin fans. Yeah, I agree. I may do the Lorien one next. I haven't decided. We'll see what happens. Valka seems the natural choice, but that one is a little bit harder. And there's a chance that that's a full-blown novel. I haven't decided because I had outlined it originally, and I was looking at it and really struggling with that outline. And it may be that could be one of the standalone books as well. So we shall see. It's a really I think it's a really good story, and I would like to I would like to deal with it. So let's see. Richard, hey man, says I am a fast writer. I don't need a team. I'm generally inclined to agree. I wish I were faster. I tell you what. I know some writers who will just leave me in the dust, but Mark says, someone at Audible needs to stop screwing around. Let me pre-order Kings of Death already at the Australian store. So I will say, I don't know what the story is with the UK Commonwealth edition of the audiobook. I have a new publisher. My British publisher opted not to continue with book 4. Long story, not worth getting into, but I have a new one, and they are contracted to do at least 3 more books. So they got Kings of Death, they got Ashes of Man, and they'll have at least one more. What their story is with audio, I don't know. They're kind of new. They have audio rights. They do plan to be making them. I don't know if that's happened or not. So that might not be out this week. I have got messages in. I'm just not sure what the story is. So one thing you might do is maybe look at a VPN and change your location to grab the US edition on Thursday. Just a thought, but I don't know what the story is there. I've been trying to find out, and I haven't gotten an answer yet. Michael Lowry, can't stay long. Wanted to say you're by far my favorite author right now. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Michael. I hope I got to this before you had to leave. So thank you, means so much. James Andrews, speaking of audiobooks, I knew I recognized Sam Roken from Turn, such a great historical fiction show. I've heard that is awesome, and I need to watch it for Sam. I think it'll be cool. I've seen a couple clips, and he is super cool in that. So I need to watch the show. Um, Mark, the Amazon store was saying 24th for Audible. Oh, good. Well, maybe they licensed the U.S. edition. You'd be amazed the things that I don't know, that I need to find that I need to find out. A lot of the sort of legal stuff my agent handles, and I'm usually out of the loop on some of that. So I will try to get a better answer for you. Um, let's see. Electric Horseman asks, have you ever read Mistborn? I have not. The only Brandon Sanderson book that I have read was Elantris, which I understand is not a representative sample of his work. I did not particularly enjoy it. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't. It wasn't like my favorite thing. Um, but sorry, I just saw a comment and I laughed. So it is not. It has not been on my radar to really go forward. That being said, I have nothing but respect for Mr. Sanderson's work. I mean, the man is a machine. Talking about writers who are faster than me, I wish I were. And more power to him. The moves he's been making is awesome. I think that's great. I'd been kind of suspecting that he was going to do something like this for a couple of years with his Kickstarter. I thought it would be a little bit while longer before he did something like it, but it happened sooner than I thought, and I'm thrilled for him. I have some friends who are friends with him, or were students and things like that. It sounds like a cool guy, but yeah, Elantris is the only thing I read. That was back in college. It's been a long time. Uh, let's see. Bug Zero, was anyone else surprised how much they liked Crispin after his story? I was prepared to not relate to him after Empire of Silence. Like, was he always going to be that guy? He may never have been that guy. That may just have been Hadrian's bad impression of him. That's one of the things with those, with these sort of first-person subjective narratives. And so I thought it would be an interesting thing to mess with, right? Because do we ever really like understand other people 100%? Like, try that we might, maybe some people, yeah. But Hadrian is 1,000 years old, right? And he knew his brother for you know that little bit at the beginning, and and maybe later, who knows? But he doesn't have a very clear sense of who he is, and so I think that's true of a lot of people, right? I think a lot of us don't really understand the people around us as they would like us to, and so that was sort of the inspiration, the thought that kind of drove that decision there. It's one of the reasons I want to do more of these novellas, because they let us play with that sort of stuff a little bit. Let's see. Richard, how long till all the rights on your books go back to you? I want to see you in control of everything. Well, it depends on the contract, right? I don't want to be specific about any of them, but usually when you sign over a book to a publisher, you sign the right to print that book in certain formats, right? Print, digital, audio, maybe. Sometimes audio is a separate deal, and that'll be it's usually like as long as they're in print, and then a few years usually is how a publishing contract works, right? It'll be like as long as this book is in circulation. If it has been out of circulation for, let's say, 5 years, right? Whatever X might be, it might be a year, it could be 10. Then the author may request the rights be reverted to them. If the rights were all reverted to me, that means they wouldn't be being published, right? Unless I did something with them. Now, there are exceptions to that for things like limited editions, and I have a pretty good working relationship with my publishers too. If I ever want to sort of do something, I don't know what something might be. We could maybe come to some agreements. You can write new contracts and things, right? So I'm not worried about like the position that I'm in, right? But if you are a new writer, you want to be careful about what you're signing, right? Because some publishers, especially the smaller presses, will take things they shouldn't be taking, right? Taking things that like Penguin wouldn't take, right? So you need to be careful, right? Make sure that you're not signing over like all translation rights or something like that. because then you're losing a lot of money. Because if you sell translation rights to the publisher, then they get to act as your agent and go around selling Spanish, French, German, whatever. And you might not see any of that depending on how the contract is written. So you just need to pay attention. That's one of the things that agents are good for is they know what to look for with these things, right? A lot of people say you don't need agents anymore. And maybe that's true if you are doing certain limited things, but agents are absolutely helpful for, especially for foreign markets, or you're trying to be a writer. That's something to think about. But no, but I don't want to be necessarily in control of everything. I want to be working with people who, know their business and do a good job. And I have had little cause for complaint. My publishers are by and large awesome. So I'm thrilled to be working with them. Particularly, I love Betsy Walheim. She's the best. And my old employer is awesome too. Tony Weisskopf Bain, one of the best ladies in the business for sure. This is what I was laughing at earlier. Locke says, "Please write about the little guy's infiltration of the Chantry ship." I think the fact that you guys want it means I shouldn't do it. Um, we'll see. We'll see. Of course, you should check out Superman and Lois in season 2. It's awesome. I kind of wanted to. Most of the CW stuff that doesn't appeal to me. I watched like the first half season of Arrow and left. But I like Superman. I know people make fun of him, but I still like Superman. Treebeard, have you ever known a fan to show you a Sun Eater tattoo? Say the Pentacle and the Trident. Orion did. Orion has like an eclipse, and sent it to me, which is cool. I know a couple people said they were gonna do it, but I think that's the only one I've seen. So, I would be honored. Certainly, strange thought, right? Someone put something I made up on themselves. It's kind of a strangely humbling experience. But yeah. Let's see. Allie, if we're talking novellas, I of course want Alex to get her own adventure, like Quinn's Ethan of Athos, but better. It's occurred to me too. There's so many characters I'd like to have, get their own time. And Ilex is one that I feel was underserved in terms of stage time, for sure. And I would like to correct these things. Only asked about rights because it seems like UK Audible has been lame. Isn't this narrator number 3? There's been just a lot of like. So I know the narrator changed between books 1 and 2. I didn't realize it changed between 1 and 3. Because again, like I if I go to Audible, I can't see the UK stuff naturally, right? Because my account is US. The first one was John Lee, and he just couldn't do book 2 8 conflict. So I didn't realize there was another change. As I say, with stuff that's not the US publisher, I'm not usually very directly involved. A lot of that stuff is handled through second parties, right? So yeah. Matt, not sure if anyone else mentioned it, but I love the detail of Velka's eyes on the cover of Ashes of Man. Yeah, no, Kieran is the best, man. He did such a good job. I got the rough sketch for that like a month and a half before the final came out, and I was dying waiting to see the final cover. He really just killed it. Did a great job. It's cool that you single that out though, because she's obviously on the cover of Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 2 as well. It's a big Valky year. And so Nathan Anderson, who did the cover for the first one, did the cover for this one. And Hadrian had their red suns behind him on his cover. And Valka, you'll see very soon, the cover reveal is coming. If you're a Patreon supporter, actually, it's coming in just a couple of days. I won't be doing a big cover reveal video for this one because it's not a main book. I'll do a video when the pre-order launches in April. That's when everyone else will see the cover. But it's got her eyes are gold in that too to go with the background. So there's a little bit of a detail match. So it's very much in the style of that first cover with the grayscales and stuff. So you'll see very soon. I think it looks really cool though. Nathan really did a good job on this one. So Guillaume says just per the Audible version, very excited. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. And it'll be out on Thursday. There's just a little bit of a delay. I think they had to retake a couple scenes or something like that. Michael, any way we could get some book cover posters down the line? I really want to put Ashes of Man on my wall. I would love to do that. There's a question of rights. The art is owned by the artist and not by me. And so I would need to work on some deals there and figure some stuff out. So that is why you cannot get them right now. And so yeah, eventually maybe it's possible, but we shall see what happens. Let's see. Brad says Ashes of Man might be my favorite cover. Color scheme is awesome, and the cape so good. Yeah, it's really. I had a hard time picking them out. As James is reminding me, though, if you want, and I recognize that they are pricey. Kieran has prints of all of my covers available on his website. They are, I think, 18 by 24s, but they are like art prints. He did a limited run of each. I think it's like 50 or 100. That he's ever going to make, period, because these are prints of the actual artwork. If you know anything about the fine art community, when they do print copies of things like this, they will do numbered editions, and that's usually it, right? So he's selling those. They're like, I don't think they're canvas. I think they're like really high quality paper, and they're fine art prints. They're not like posters, which is why they're more expensive. So if you want to support the artist, that's a great way to do it, because he sells them himself, so all the money goes to him. But again, as I say, I recognize they're expensive, so that's not going to work for everybody. I would love, like I said, to be able to do posters and things, but that is just not how the legalities shake down in this case. So I'm really sorry about that. Jay's here. Hey, yes, I still live, or I'm still live, rather. Whoops. Yeah, hope you enjoyed your you were at a game, right? So I hope that went well. Hope you won. You're winning, son. Let's see. I missed one somewhere. Oh, James. Recall on Patreon you were going to make t-shirts. Any update on that front? The website is very, very nearly done. We just need to sort of test the store mechanism. My wife was saying the best way to do that might be to just go live. So it could be very, very soon that we do that. So we may be going live. There will be a few t-shirts available when the website launches. I'm just waiting on a couple things at this point. I know it's taken a while. I didn't want to try and throw it up there too at the same time that the book was coming out. There's just too many things going on. So it'll be very soon. When the website launches, it will have a comprehensive list of all the short stories and where to find them. It'll talk about books. It'll talk about me. It'll talk about my events. There'll be a calendar that we'll be able to update dynamically, so you can figure out where I'm going to be and when. And it will have a store, which will absolutely have some merchandise in it. It'll mostly be t-shirts at this early stage. Speaking of, the Patreon did reach my goal. And I'll probably set new goals in the future, but it reached the 1,000 goal that I had. And so I have reached out to a map artist, and we are going to get working on a Solid Empire map. So that'll be, I don't know when that's going to come out. It'll be sometime this year, but we're getting rolling on that front pretty soon. So there'll be a map only possible thanks to my patrons over on Patreon. So thank you to all of them and all of you if it applies to you. So thanks for doing that. So we're getting to work on it. But yeah, so that'll be soon. Sorry, Jimmy. We're getting rolling on it. And also, my books have not come yet from speaking of Patreon. Says I know Jimmy is one of my Palatines. So is Orion. A couple others are here. I have not gotten my Kingdoms of Death copies from Penguin yet. I ordered a bunch more because when I got my author copies, like half of them were damaged. So I had to buy some new ones. And so I don't have enough to send to everybody. And I will send them out as soon as they get here. So I appreciate your patience, my patrons. God bless you. Call me Zero. I see you're in the office. Is it fully done now? Fully done? No, it is very, very close. So finally finished this section, except for I'm still polishing the walls. I waxed them, and I'm not really good at waxing walls yet. So I've been slowly polishing them. I've been working on it, but it was time to move my desk at least, which was very cool. So I'm really digging it. As far as the rest goes, The cabinets still don't have doors on them, so that has to get done still. The bookshelves, which are going to go on top of that cabinet that you all could see in the other video, needs to get done. There's a hinge. You see there's a door here in the bench. The hinge isn't in yet. The door is just sitting in there. So that's got to get done. There are a couple other things. We got to put railings on the stairs still. Apparently, like people could fall off or something. So, I gotta do that. So once the railings are in, basically, it'll be done as far as the city of Raleigh is concerned, and I can get the inspection done, and then I can officially live here. I am unofficially living here because the flood damage that my neighbor had caused me to have to move some stuff in my house. At least that's what we're going with. Wasn't that I really wanted to be up here? Not at all. Well, so let's see. But yeah, it's very close. Once we get the permit squared away, we'll build the bookshelves and stuff. But we're getting a little burned out because it's just me, my dad, and my brother really doing all this, and it was time to take a break. So we're pushing through the railings, and then we'll be taking a break. But I'm really psyched. I think it looks pretty good. So I'd have to get a curtain, obviously, because I hung those up to block the sun, as people who were here earlier know. So Orion says, if anyone's serious about fine art prints, get them. I have Karn Saga on my wall, and the quality is breathtaking. Yeah, I need to grab one myself, to be honest. The only one you can't get is Empire of Silence, because that was a different artist. Although if you want to check out Sam Weber's website, he may be amenable to selling a print. I have not spoken to him about it. Although I did speak to him earlier today. Sam is a good dude. So, let's see. Truebeard, will the website launch be in a newsletter? Yeah, absolutely. I will be putting that out. I will also do a live stream to show everyone how the website works. Seems like a weird, lame excuse to do another live stream, but I will do one. So, let's see, Mr. Blueby, first live stream I've been able to make. Love your work. You're 100% my favorite author right now. Well, thank you, Mr. Blueby. Thanks for being here. I'm glad you could make it. It means so much. Eric Williamson just made it here. Congrats. Thank you, Eric. I'm glad you're here as well. Yeah, pretty close. Sorry, that was a really long answer about The Office. I just really like talking about it. It's like my favorite thing that I've been doing lately. Besides Elden Ring. Let's see. James, seriously thinking about the KOD one. Totally do it, because Kieran's only making a limited number of them. I don't expect that they'll, sell out at all very quickly, but they will be, you'll own a Kieran Yanner original, right? Which is pretty cool. So yeah, totally do it. You should support him. Kieran is the man, as we all know. Let's see, Richard. Really enjoyed seeing the progress in The Office. Do you like writing in the dark? Is there a preference? I usually during the day don't turn lights on just because, you don't need to, and I think Captain Planet got to me as a kid. But no, I usually don't during the day that much just because the room is bright enough. But at nighttime, no, it's not good for your eyes, man. Like you can't do that. Let's see. Bye, Allie. Thanks for being here. Treebeard, your dad is an awesome carpenter. Man, isn't that the truth? This is all him. So I'm really lucky. He's the man. So we're doing the stairs too. There's gonna be some iron work in the red. That's gonna be cool. It's gonna be really cool. I will eventually do a walkthrough when this is actually finished, like for real. So we'll see. It's a little ways out, but yeah. So I guess we reached the bottom of the chat. I didn't think we would get there for a little while. So yeah, anyway, in order to fill the science, we talked a little bit about Queen of Mid-Ashes. That's underway. I am working on a short story right now called Echidna, which is going to be about the first Cielson world ship that the Sullan Empire captured in the wars, which they captured at the Battle of Crestguard, which may be familiar to some of you. And so it's about that. I'm working on that now. It's going to be out in December as part of my last Vane Books anthology, Worlds Long Lost, a book that has the unfortunate distinction of coming out on the same day as Ashes of Man, so it will be overlooked a little bit. But there are two books. I have two books coming out on the same day this year, December 6th. And so that story should be done I wanted to have it done by the end of the month. It might be a little bit tight. The last week's been pretty crazy on account of the aforementioned flood damage. So I've had to deal with that, which was fun. Um, but it should be done soon. And as soon as that's done, I should be seeing edits for Ashes of Man next month at some point, and I will be turning those around pretty quickly because December will be here before too long. It's already the end of March, which is crazy. And so so I'll be done with Ashes of Man probably by the end of April, which means that during April and May I will be outlining book 6, and hopefully the plan will be to finish book 6 by the end of the year. So that is going to be the rest of my year. Book 5, for anyone who doesn't know, is already written. It is already turned in to my editor. So when I say I'm waiting on revisions, that's what I mean. Like, it is all done and turned in. So we are ready to go on that one. I don't expect there to be that much on it. There usually isn't, on account of the outlines. My editorial passes are pretty clean. So book 5 is pretty much done, and book 6 will be done around the time you all see book 5 in December. Failing any sort of hangups. Hey, Richard, welcome, my friend. It's good to hear from you. It's been a while. Glad you could make it. We're just updating everybody on book 5. Which, as I say, is done. So I really hope everybody likes book 4. I'm pretty pleased with how it's turned out. As I said, I'm nervous about it because it is a doozy, let's say. But Albert liked it, so I trust Albert's judgment. He's a smart guy. So I think maybe the book will have turned out all right. So I really do hope everybody enjoys it. I'm happy to do some more questions if we got them. I'm just trying to fill the airspace here while wait for some more questions to drop in. Speaking of reading with Robson, will we get a book 7 or is it wrapping up in 6? That is a really excellent question. The short answer is that I don't know. I suspect it's going to be 7, but the ink is not dried on the contracts just yet. I should know pretty soon. Hopefully in the next month or so, what the situation is going to be. I don't see any reason why it won't be 7. I'm planning on asking for 2 more, and everybody seems to like me. So we shall see. But I'm counting on 7 is the current plan. So let's see. Jake says y'all better like book 4 or else. Well, you heard the man. Severian with a really good question. What really bothered you about the split narrative-wise? What bothered me was just that it was less than I was planning on giving you all. People who really like Demon in White in particular like to say that it's like 5 books that are sort of in one book. And this one went from being like 6 books in one book to being 3 and 3. And so I worry that some people are going to feel like it's a little bit less than Demon in White just because it's 80,000, 90,000 words shorter than Demon in White, which is like a Sorcerer's Stone and a half shorter. And so it's not, that's not to say that it's a short book, right? It's still, I think it's 2 signatures shorter than Empire of Silence. So it's 32 pages shorter, I think, something like that. It's not a lot shorter, but it is the shortest in the series. And I was just worried folks would feel like they didn't get as much as the last one. That being said, the place that it got split, I think works really well as an ending and may actually work better now as 2 books than it did. I think Ashes of Man, when you read it, will be, now I can be just like Dunkey, I guess. Let me pull that down. It bothers me. Oh, physical comedy. Okay. Me and Dunkey with the things falling in the background. Cool. Now you know which video game YouTubers I watch. And you can see the cars. That's great. I'm gonna put my head there. This is why I want those. This is why I want those curtains. And now the white balance is all messed up. Awesome. Awesome. So much for my excellent camera from earlier. Anyway, that's okay. But no. So back to the split. What I do think it's benefited. I think it specifically benefits book 5. There's a lot more stuff that was able to go in there. So I think that this is how the split has been a net positive, and I think that most people aren't even going to know that it was a thing. it's a secret between you and me. You know, those of you who want to use the channel and actually, you know, talk. Most readers, I don't think, are going to ever notice or care. I don't think it's going to really impact the reading experience at all. um, Jake says, "Yeah, but the 3 books of stuff in Kingdoms of Death it includes stuff that's completely insane." That is true. So, you know, I think it'll be all right. But I was still a little nervous, and it's also, you know, I was nervous too because it's just been about 2 years, which is the longest it's been since I started publishing, since I published a book. So, um, so yeah, you know, um, it was has been an interesting experience. I do hope that I don't have to split any more books because that was an extra step that I could have done without. Let's see. It is the world famous book reviewer Jake Bishop. What a legend. Was a pretty cool guy. Chase's book thoughts. I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but what is one of your favorite aspects of being an author? The actual writing, right? The fact that I get to, for a living, make up a bunch of stories about space Romans and evil robots and creepy aliens and you know, outer gods is really a privilege, like an actual privilege, right? And so it's very cool to be able to do that because I love doing it. You know, when I actually am in the zone and writing, you know, and have a 2,000-3,000 word day, those are the best days. Those are the days I most love being me. And so to be able to do that and to support my little family doing that is really awesome and special. And I am very grateful to each and every one of you for helping me to do that. So thank you. I don't say it nearly often enough. So thank you. But I like doing this. This is cool. I'm not a big convention guy though. Conventions are very stressful for me. This is much more fun. You know, I don't like crowds that much, so a lot of writers really dig the convention scene. That's not me, but this and the actual writing are really the best parts for me. And special too are those emails I get from people who say, "Hey, this book like really helped me," right? Which is weird, right? Because it's a book about space Romans. You know, but that it helps anybody is really cool, and I'm honored to play even a small role in my readers' lives, as you all play a much bigger role collectively in mine. So again, thank you. But that's all really cool. Let's see. Ghost confirmed in the new office, 100%. And by ghost, I mean the vent that's right there, which is really nice because third floors obviously get really hot. So the vent being right here is great, but it knocked down the fake curtain that I put up, which is actually a real curtain. There's just no rod yet because that's how we do it here on the Sun Eater channel. We just nothing in our house works properly, and you can see the road behind me now. But it should be dark enough no one can triangulate my location. So, like they did to Shia LaBeouf's flag. Anyway, let's see. Callahan, hey Callahan. I had to create a channel in order to comment. Never commented on YouTube. Well, I am honored to be the first, my friend. Welcome. Locke, apologies if this was covered earlier, but will we make it back to Earth in Sun Eater? Maybe. That's another one I don't know. I want to give the answer to. Reading with Robson, when writing Empire Silence, was the vastness of the story already as large, or did it grow more and more as you wrote it? Absolutely, it grew in the telling, to borrow Tolkien's phrase, right? Not just because it went from 4 to 5 to probably 7 books, but the scope of it has grown too, as I've started to realize that there were more players who should be on the board, right, and more variables that should be in the equation. And that's something that that comes up as you're outlining, as I'm outlining, or as I'm writing. I'll realize, oh crap, like I forgot about the Inquisition. They would have something to say here. And then you really you do a lot of stuff like that. I end up, like, I'm trying to think of an example, but you'd be surprised the number of world building details that began as throwaway lines in sentences that happened sort of subconsciously on spur of the moment and became really important. I can't think of an example, but a lot of stuff will grow that way and become more and more important. Are 6 and 7 planned on being DIW length or KOD length? They'll be KOD length unless something changes. My understanding is that Penguin Random House gave a mandate to a lot of its imprints that they needed to limit the length of books because the cost of paper is going up so high because, well, the Pax Americana is collapsing and global world order is changing, and we are living through some interesting times. But it impacted the price of paper. Now, that's not going to mess with all of your authors, but it's going to mess with some of them. So I don't know the full impacts for the industry, but it's certainly interesting times. Mr. Blue, do you have any specific inspirations behind the Cielson? A few. But the main one is a nightmare that I had. And apparently it's not an uncommon one where people have these like very pale, sort of distended monsters. It's apparently a pretty common nightmare. But I went from there. There's obviously some Geiger in there as well. There's and there's some ancient cultures. The Assyrians, for example, tended to act a little bit like the Cielson do. The Assyrians were pretty brutal. But the big one is that nightmare. I just had these really tall, sort of like distended, like white shadows that would chase me when I was a kid. I don't really have nightmares anymore, but I had that one. I had that one pretty regularly. Reading with Robson, got a message from the Goodreads team saying they're looking at those spam reviews. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. Like I mentioned, I've blocked Goodreads on my computer, so I can't actually do anything about it myself. The way I blocked them, I can't even go into the task manager and unblock the thing that's blocking them. So I appreciate everybody who went out of their way to go and talk to Goodreads about the review bombing because, man, that was lame. Let's see. Jungle Jones, any more Sunny Your Side stories in the making? Love Lesser Devil. If you mean novellas like Lesser Devil, there is one more, Queen Amid Ashes, which you can actually read right now in a book called Sword and Planet, which has Hadrian Novellic on the cover. It's a red book I edited for Bain Books. It's got a bunch of stories by other writers in it, but you can read that one now. It's a Hadrian short story as a novella that's set between Howling Dark and Demon White. I have outlines for a Valka novella and for a Lorien one. I would like to do other characters. I don't want to rattle off a list of people because I don't know when I'm going to write them, and I don't want people thinking they're getting that Lorien one tomorrow because I haven't even started it. But I would like to. As far as short stories go, I'm working on one right now called Echidna. I talked at length about it a little bit earlier. That'll be out in December in a book called Worlds Long Lost. And Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 2 comes out on June 1st. I'll put it up for pre-order in early April. That's got 6 new stories in it. Collectively, it's about 50,000 words long, so it's a little bit shorter than Lesser Devil, but it'll be out in June. Let's see. Nobody expects a Sullen Inquisition. Man, if you knew how many times I got that Monty Python clip sent to me, I would have a lot of nickels. If I had a nickel for every time I got that clip. Young Polino, please. Interesting. Maybe, Albert. We'll see. I'll have to think of an idea. Callahan says, I need more Father Laurent. That would be, he should show up in some more Crispin stuff if I do some more Crispin stuff. I like Laurent a lot as well, too. Richard, plans after book 6, possibly book 7, as we've discussed a couple times. It may be that it takes 2 more books to finish the series since I've had the length limitation given to me. How he lost the eye. Albert, he told that story already, at least in part. Let's see. Guillaume, after this series is done, would you ever consider writing the epic fantasy genre? Totally. Talked about this a lot earlier in the stream, but I worry about changing genres just because. Oh yeah, my arm fixed the white balance. Cool. I worry about it just because changing genres is sort of like if your favorite band changes genres, and you're like Queen, what is this disco album? Nobody likes Hot Space, right? And And so I'm a little apprehensive to make the jump over to fantasy. I would love to do it. There are ways that I could do it strategically from a career standpoint that I think would be safer than others. But the next move is going to be after the Hadrian series is going to be to do some standalone novels in this universe. And then maybe I might slip a standalone novel in that's not. One of those could be fantasy. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not thinking that far ahead in terms of new projects because what'll happen is I'll when I get finished with the last Hadrian book, whether that's 6 or 7, I'll have an idea that I'm really, really excited about, and whatever that idea is will be the right book to write. Because right now I have an idea that's not Hadrian at all that I'm really, really excited about and I'm doing world building for. But I can't reasonably start it right now because I need to write 2 more books, right? So, so yeah. Sorry, I was reading a question. Let's see. Rick Fox, you described this story as what if Anakin was right to become Darth Vader? Do you have a point in mind where that transformation is, to quote Palpatine, complete? Yes, I do. And I can't really say where it is, but you are we're on our way. The people want an Udak's origin story. More Urktani is definitely a good idea. Let's leave it at that, Jay, because I love the bird guys too. Let's see. Jimmy, did you take any inspiration for the extras Pounce on Life extension from Altered Carbon's sleeving idea? I have neither seen nor read Altered Carbon, actually. I know James Purefoy is in it, but that's all I know about it. No, but I hear it's cool. Rishi, if I order book 4 from Quill Books now, can I still get it personalized? Absolutely. Even if you ordered it in 2 weeks, you could still get it personalized. And you can order other books from Quill Ridge at any point in time and ask for them personalized. Just fill out the other comment section saying that you'd like me to sign them, and they will give me a call, and I will drive over there as soon as I can. Obviously, I'm going to be there on Thursday right now, so I have not planned to go in sooner, which is that's just the way it is. So I'm going to go on Thursday. But if you didn't order one until next month, I would and ask for it signed. I would still sign it 100%. I have an ongoing relationship with them where I'll sign books for. Rudy Robson is somebody who has consistently put out a steady stream of top tier stories. What do you think the biggest hurdles are for authors who struggle? So I don't. So I want to say before we get into this, if we're talking about famous writers who are taking a little while, I don't know what specifically they are dealing with, and I am not trying to poke fun at anyone like that. If we're talking about people who struggle with like chronic writer's block on in general, I think the big problem is failing to plan. I am a big advocate of outlining. I talk about outlining all the time. People make fun of me for talking about outlining. I keep realizing I can click on these comments and I haven't been. It's been sort of like it's become like a meme with me. But I think that everybody should outline, and I think that writers who don't have to would probably even still be better writers if they did. And so when I outline, I think of them as low resolution first drafts because it's a lot easier to throw away 2 pages of outline than it is 20 pages of story. That's like a gutting emotional experience, right? Every time my computer frags half a chapter because it did a Windows update, I want to commit, seppuku, because that sucks. So it's much better to just lose some outlining. And when you're working in low resolution and your story is just saying, and then Hadrian went to the store, it's a lot easier to make changes and to figure out what you want to have happen. So I try to figure out plot in the outline in particular. So I don't have to figure out plot later. When I'm writing the scene, I don't have to stress about it. So I think a lot of writers don't do that and they get into a scene and they get lost and they lock up and get frozen and then they feel bad because they need to delete a bunch of stuff to get out of it, and deleting stuff sucks. So I think a lot of people get stuck just because they didn't they leapt before they looked, basically. I think that's a lot of it. Like I say, I don't think that applies to more established writers who may be taking a long time. I think that there are some other problems going on there. You know, like maybe like working with Hollywood is really stressful. I don't know. Clear that I'm not talking about those writers. Uh, anyway, are you a fan of Blade Runner by chance? Absolutely. Yeah, no. I love both films. I know a lot of people are pretty split on the second one. I don't understand why. I love both of them. The first one obviously is great, masterpiece, but I like the second one too. Okay, before I dive back into Kingdoms of Death, what is the Cid part in Cid Arthur? As Jimmy says below, Locke, it's El Cid of Spain, the Spanish knight. So it's the third component of this weird syncretic religion, right? That's Arthur and the Buddha and El Cid got kind of confused due to thousands of years of cultural drift. Treebeard, I gotta go. All the best, Christopher. Wishing you a world of success. Well, thanks, man. I will see you soon, I'm sure. Callahan, I'd like a short story in which Seleni's mother gets murdered painfully. Doesn't have to be a big story. It can be a micro story. I don't know that I'm gonna write just a murder story, but I understand why you dislike Her Highness. Severity, should we expect a shorter book for book 6, given your expected desire to write shorter books? No, the rest of the series will be in the same style as this has gone on. I think it would be a catastrophe to hand it to you, you know, something a quarter of the size. That's not going to happen. They're going to continue to look like this until the end. They aren't probably going to look like this unless somebody changes what I'm allowed to do structurally, but there's nothing I can do about the cost of paper and penguin mandates. So, yeah, like James says too, talking about the Cid Arthurians, the Chantry religion is like 5 religions in one. Yeah, it's sort of a syncretic sort of thing. Jake Bishop, in world is Hadrian a fast writer? How long has it just taken him? How long has it taken him to get where we are? Is he a faster writer than you are, or a slower writer? He's a slower writer, for sure, because he's dealing with the actual emotional fallout of what he's writing, right? And I don't know if you've ever tried to like write a letter to someone you like think is dying. It's a lot harder, let's just say. And you have to deal with the feelings, and he's dealing with a lot of feelings as he's writing this. And that's slowing down. He's also, you know, he's trying really hard to get this stuff out. Let's see. Hrishi, do you think excessive outlining inhibits organic growth of character or aids it? It certainly doesn't inhibit it. I think a lot of the people's fear about outlining is that it's going to like destroy their you know, mystical channeling of the muses, and it doesn't do that. Right? We talk about gardeners and architects. I tend to think of myself as someone who does espalier, right? I am like helping the vines grow up the trellis, right? And that's what the outline is for, right? And so these things can really help with that. So I tend to leave character notes as like pretty like broad statements in my outlines. I'll say, you know, this is important to Hadrian emotionally because X, right? And leave it there because that's enough, right? And when I'm in the scene, it's because it's a lot easier to track those little minutia of feeling when you're actually writing the scene than it is to plan all of that stuff in advance. So if I know what's going to happen plot wise, then I can be with Hadrian emotionally while that stuff is happening. I don't need to figure out what the Sealson are doing on the other side of the battlefield or whatever. I know that. And so I can be in the spot and respond to it more like I'm present. And that helps emotionally. Um, and so, and I'm also perfectly willing to throw my outline out or deviate from it for a period when I need to. And so that's another factor too. You don't need to be tyrannized by your own outline. You don't need to be your own master or your own slave. You can cooperate with your past self, right? And you know, collaborate on these things. So you know, it's okay. Albert, have you seen the Batman? I have. I thought it was excellent. I have a couple like little problems with it, not least of which is that the internet is not real, and like seeing live streams in movies is weird, and I don't like it. So that was weird. But I did think the Riddler was great. I really liked him. I thought the movie was pretty good. Pretty much across the board, it's my favorite Batmobile, bar none. I thought it was awesome. Not least of which because I drive a Challenger. I think it was based on a Barracuda, so so it's my car. So I drive a Batmobile, which is cool. But I thought Robert Pattinson was awesome. I kind of knew he was gonna be. I've watched some of like his more art housey stuff, and he's awesome. He's a really good actor. Thoughts on Robert Pattinson as Hadrian? Man, Albert, you just like want to make every actor from the last movie you saw Hadrian. It was Timothy Chalamet a couple months ago, and now it's Robert Pattinson, huh? But this time I agree with you. I think he'd be a better fit than Timothy. Timothy looks like he looks like he's 15, right? Which is why he's a great Paul. But Hadrian stopped being 15 a long time ago. So Kravitz says Velka, interesting choice. I still like Berenice Marlowe for Velka personally. But there was an aspect of Catwoman and Batman's relationship that was a little bit familiar, wasn't there? Jake Bishop, El Cid is the guy Rodrigo Belmonte is based on in Lions of El Rasan, right? Yes, totally, 100%. Famous, as Albert says, he's a famous historical figure from the Reconquista. He's a real dude. One of the few legendary swords from European history we actually have. We have his swords, which are cool because they are like sort of in Spain. They are like Excalibur tier, right? But they're like still around, which is cool. Yeah, as Albert also notes about the Hadrian being a slow writer thing, he's also written a story like 5 times. Yeah, he keeps losing them. Yeah, which is another whole factor. Now Orion is out. Orion, we'll see you later. Thanks for being here. A lot of Guy Gabriel K love in here. Reading with Robinson, and I think we're over the 2 hour mark. We'll start winding down here soon, so maybe we'll do this question in like 1 or 2 more. In terms of bringing books to screen, do you feel the pros of exposure outweigh the cons of book fans being hypercritical, a la Wheel of Time? The pros certainly outweigh the cons for the author personally, right? Even if the show is really bad, the Hollywood tier exposure will help the book sales, and even a really terrible adaptation will help the author for that reason. And so we should be happy, even amid bad adaptations, if we like the authors. Right now, obviously, it's better to get a good adaptation, right? I have not read Wheel of Time because it is really, really long. And when I learned how long it was as a kid, I was like, I could just read Lord of the Rings like 8 times. And I love Lord of the Rings so much that was preferable for me because I'm crazy. But so I don't know. I've heard that people are not happy with it, and I, for one, am really worried about the Rings of Power. So I understand. I would prefer to live in a world where we get nothing but good adaptations, and why we get so many iffy ones, I have no idea. But it is still good for the author, and it is good for the property as a whole. Just because it's going to help move books, it's going to help move tie-in stuff. It's going to help generate more interest for and affection for the material. But again, it would be better if things were good. I watch very little television these days because so much of it is just not for me. Let's see. Jake says, I feel like people like Eye of the World more now than when they read when they read it than when they watched the show first. Yeah, that's it. You mean like they like it more now that the show is bad relative to before? That's an interesting point, right? Because like a bad adaptation can also like tend to paper over some of the inadequacies in the original, which is it's an interesting point, right? Just because like, oh, we didn't know how good we had it, right? That's sort of the attitude about the Star Wars prequels, right? Famously, because the sequels are in every way except production quality worse. The scripts are terrible. But yeah, no, Richard, I like the Batman a lot. I'm torn on whether or not I think it's better than the Dark Knight or not. I don't think Paul Dano is quite where Heath Ledger was in terms of my favorite Batman villains overall. I thought he was tremendous, and the Riddler is actually my favorite Batman villain. So I was really happy to see him taken seriously. Um, as opposed to the Jim Carrey model. Although I really like Batman Forever. I think it might be my favorite of the 80s 90s movies, even though it's really cheesy. I was talking to a friend about it a couple days ago. I love how Schumacher's Gotham just feels like a giant laser tag course. Like it's just a really silly film. But Tommy Lee Jones just is hamming it up the whole time. It's just fun to watch. And Val Kilmer is a really underrated Batman voice too. I watched a couple clips, I think yesterday. Um, but as Rick says, and this is maybe the right way to split it, the Batman is a better Batman movie, but the Dark Knight is a better film. That's reasonable. It's really close for me. I think I need to watch Dark Knight again. It's been several years. I do like that Gotham felt more like Gotham, and that was a big point for me. I liked too that there was a detective element, which they really leaned on in the story and in the marketing too. They were like, "We're doing a detective story finally." But I liked how Batman was just willing to like walk around as Batman and talk to people and do stuff. He felt more like he belonged in the world, which made the fact that he was dressed like a bat even weirder, right? So like it just like really the tone was really interesting. Obviously the cinematography was great. The score was the best. I love Michael Giacchino so much. He's so underrated. And the music was awesome. The performances were pretty great across the board. Um, I don't know why Penguin is Italian now, but I'll take it. John Turturro was awesome, really awesome as Falcone. And Robert Pattinson was great. I wanted more Andy Serkis, but that's true of anything Andy Serkis is in. I really like the film. Um, but I do want to go see it a couple more times while it's still around. Um, but yeah. So, Albert says you're still upset. Albert, you still upset about the book or about the movie? Andy Serkis for Polino. There we go. Yeah, I think that would be a pretty good fit, actually. I love Andy Serkis. Rick says Pattinson definitely had an air of why aren't you in costume? And everyone gave him funny looks for being costume. That's a pretty interesting point. I thought he was tremendous. I really liked him. Um, Albert says he's playing straight into what you said earlier. Yeah, but I'm just making fun of you because you're one of the good ones. But yeah, no, awesome movie. I thought. The only other thing I'm really interested in seeing this year is The Northman. I didn't like The Witch, which was Eggers' first big movie. I liked The Lighthouse a lot, and he's doing an adaptation of Amleth, right, the Saxo Grammaticus version of Hamlet, the original, and it looks super cool. I think it's out April, so that's like my only other movie this year that I'm really interested in. Most of the superhero stuff is sort of going for me. I might see Doctor Strange too, but I'll probably be the only one. And even then, I'm kind of if it wasn't Sam Raimi, I'd probably skip it. But those first two Raimi Spider-Mans are pretty good stuff. But it is appropriate, I think, that we end on a discussion of Batman, and I will do a brief speech why. Is because Batman was basically where all of this started. I've talked before about how I started writing because I was writing accounts of the make believe games we were playing at recess in grade school, right, kindergarten, first, second grade. And I was Batman most of the time because I did not know what Dragon Ball Z was, and that's who my friends were. So Batman was trying to hack it with Goku and Vegeta. And while I recognize a lot of you think that that is ridiculous, it is no more ridiculous than Batman trying to hack it with Superman and Wonder Woman. And by God, I made it through. And I was the only one who kept writing these stories down when they all, developed social skills and started playing football and became normal people. And so Batman was really the first character that I ever did any sort of writing with. He, stopped being Batman at some point and started having a lightsaber and running around space. But there's still a little bit of, that DNA floating around. The brooding and the gothicism has never left, and that is still an element of the stories, and it always, I think, will be. So we ended, I think, in the right place. But my friends, we're nearly at 2.5 hours, and I think I will call it there for this evening. I hope if you have read Kingdoms of Death already, I know Albert has, that you enjoyed it. If you have not read it yet, I really hope that you do enjoy it, and I hope you will check back here on the channel for more stuff. Very soon, we will be revealing the website, talking about that stuff. Pretty soon, and also look for the release of Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 2. The pre-order will come up in the next week or two, and it'll release on June 1st. That will be the next big thing. And then, of course, Ashes of Man Book 5 will be in December. Oh, Michael, I saw you just popped in. I will answer your question before we leave. Michael, is Alistair still alive at this point in the story? He is. He is still alive. He has been shuttling around the galaxy trying to do some Alistair business on the side. What that is, you will have to wait and see. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for reading the books. I'm sorry, Michael, to cut out just as you were getting here, but it's been a long evening already, and I will see you all very soon, if for no other reason than start streaming Elden Ring. Expect that probably in like a month or so. I got to finish my file, and I'm taking it pretty slow. So, Albert, I did not say there was necessarily a reunion, just that you might hear about it some more. It might be in that Crispin story. But on that note, having crushed Albert's dreams one last time, as is tradition, I will see you all next time. And as Jake says, always forward, always down, never left or right. And until next time, everybody, stay well.